Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
What Chen Ming said sounded very reasonable. But the boss still felt something was wrong and said, "But since you already exist in our universe, it doesn't matter whether you meet the president or not?" Chen Ming immediately denied it and said, "No, I don't feel right. I do exist, but when those things in another space locate me and the president, they should only locate two independent points. Otherwise, there is no way to explain why Chen Ming didn't have such a feeling before. Until he really planned to set sail to find the president, he was sweating profusely. Of course, Chen Ming couldn't be so direct, but changed to a relatively reasonable statement. We are not completely corresponding to another space like hyperspace. There must be many complex and even distorted influences in between. Being able to locate the Empire for 20 years means that they can confirm the location of the infection in our universe through dimensional infection. But they lost our location again after 20 years, which means that the relative position change between dimensions will make them unable to continue to locate. According to our understanding, this relative position change must have a traceable trace, since those things are not continuing to track. It means that for them, the change in the relative position of the dimension is random. This change process has been distorted from our universe to their dimension. So even if the president's existence provides a coordinate, they can't find our location, because the coordinates provided by the president and I have been random after experiencing the change between dimensions. The boss suddenly thought of a question at this time and asked, "Then do you think it is possible that they can't locate us through people who have experienced dimensional infection?" Chen Ming used psychic power to slightly control his highest point, and the idea of looking for the president flashed through his mind. The next moment, the sense of danger came again. So Chen Ming answered very confidently and decisively, "No, they can definitely determine our coordinates through me and the president. It's just because the president and I have no actual contact yet. And after the last dimensional change, they probably don't know where the second dimensional infection occurred in our universe. It's even more unclear whether it's the same empire or even the clones of the same species. To be honest, this second dimensional infection was also caused by Yuhui, not humans. Even if they know our human genes, it's impossible to be sure that it must be a clone made by humans themselves. Wait, it doesn't seem right, just ignore me." Chen Ming suddenly remembered the sense of danger he felt in the universe of consciousness space before. This should mean that something in another dimension has known his existence. So it can't be said that they are not sure whether this second dimensional infection is caused by humans. As long as Chen Ming is alive, even if it is not caused by humans, the dimensional infection will eventually fall on humans. But it is certain that they cannot determine the location of the two-dimensional infections in our universe. Otherwise, Chen Ming's danger perception ability should have known about this at the moment the dimensional infection occurred. The president and I are discrete and independent points, not related points. It doesn't matter if we don't come into contact at ordinary times. But once we come into contact, the situation changes. These two discrete points are no longer independent. Two people who have come into contact with the corrupt dimension, two discrete random coordinates. When they get close, it is equivalent to confirming a line for the corrupt dimension. A line that can find the possibility of regular existence in the relative positions of random changes in the dimension. They can find traces of our existence in the location of the empire on this line in the universe. If a third point appears in the future, it means that something will happen 100% of the time. Chen Ming finished his conjecture in one breath, took a deep breath to slow down, and drank a sip of water. Although he had no knowledge of another dangerous dimension and the infection of the dimension 3 days ago, and had no in-depth understanding. But it was this sense of danger brought by meeting the president that made him quickly consider a lot of things that he would never have thought of before, but were very reasonable. So much so that the boss, besides thinking about what Chen Ming said, couldn't help but ask him, "How did you think of these?" Chen Ming thought about it and said, "Maybe it's a feeling." Feeling? The boss didn't doubt Chen Ming's statement, because Chen Ming had talked to him about something before. When Chen Ming faced the distorted heart and was forcibly dragged into the consciousness space by the distorted heart, He sensed the danger from the starry sky. At that time, the boss took the initiative to help Chen Ming explain that the consciousness space magnified his perception and greatly improved his perception ability. So at this moment, the boss also immediately agreed with Chen Ming's conjecture. After all, Chen Ming is a person who has experienced the dimensional infection firsthand, and he also has a very keen perception ability. It is very normal to notice that something is wrong. And at this moment, the boss's terminal suddenly vibrated. He picked up the terminal and saw the president's call. The boss picked up the phone and listened for a while, and his face gradually became more solemn. After a few simple responses, he said, "Yes, Xiaoming has a similar feeling. I will send you the recording just now." "Yeah. Okay, let's talk about it later." The boss hung up the phone and explained to Chen Ming, "I have the habit of recording in my daily life, which helps me do things a lot of times. Although sometimes I will leave my own evidence, the benefits generally outweigh the disadvantages." Chen Ming nodded. He had no objection to the boss recording, because he has been recording himself. So Chen Ming also skipped this topic and asked about the phone call just now. "What did the president say just now?" "The president said that he just felt a little problem and wanted to talk to you in detail about the dimensional infection. He needs to prepare and will call you again soon." "What did he feel specifically?" "He just said that he felt a little problem, and it would be better to wait until he figured it out before meeting you. Then I sent him the recording of you, and I just talked." "Is that so?" Chen Ming had a feeling that the president seemed to have only noticed something wrong. He didn't perceive the extremely dangerous feeling as finely as he did. Is the president's psychic power not as good as his in terms of danger perception? Chen Ming was a little surprised, but it would definitely not be a bad thing. When will the president call next time? Not sure yet. As soon as the boss finished speaking, his terminal vibrated again. Wait. The boss glanced at the terminal and said, "It seems to be now." He answered the phone and said, "President." Chen Ming saw the boss nod slightly, then took off the headphones in his ears, turned on the hands-free, and placed the terminal on Chen Ming's bed. The president's voice immediately sounded from the terminal. "Chen Ming, we'd better not meet for the time being. Through what you just said, I went to check my previous research records with someone and found some big problems. First of all, I can say that your guesses are basically correct, except for the judgment on the number of people who have experienced dimensional infection. Because the relative positions between dimensions change over time, the coordinates required to truly confirm the location of our empire are not 3, but 4, and there is no problem with the others." The president corrected Chen Ming's mistake, and then basically repeated his own statement to Chen Ming. But it was more detailed and more specific, and there were many research data from the president to prove it. At the same time, he also told Chen Ming his feelings and the more detailed content he knew about this space. Basically, they are the specific results of the president's research on another space. It's just that Chen Ming's knowledge is not in this area, and he doesn't quite understand these terms and data related to the advanced space. But he understood what the president meant. It's better for him and the president not to meet in this life. Chen Ming has no objection to this. He doesn't want to wake up one day and find that the entire empire has become a distorted flesh and blood organization. In addition, I will report this matter to the imperial government, so that when there are people who have been exposed to dimensional infection in the future, they can be found as soon as possible. After the president finished speaking, he specially reminded Chen Ming, "You must remember to keep a physical distance between us and don't give those things a chance to find us." Chen Ming also knew the seriousness of the matter and said solemnly, "I will pay attention." "Well, I'm actually quite relieved about you. Wu asked for a batch of sponsorship from the association before, saying that you will go out later, and you and I will basically not meet each other. I just want to remind you that you really need to be on guard against the third and fourth people who may appear in the future." People. Fortunately, there are only 2 of us who have been infected by the dimension and are still alive. Even if we get together by accident, it only provides a little possibility for the things in another dimension. It will take a long time to find us. Chen Ming suddenly asked curiously, "If we meet, will it be equivalent to a death countdown? After all, there is a line, and those things will find us sooner or later." It can be understood that if 3 people get together, the countdown progress will increase rapidly. If there are 4 people, the impact will be absolutely devastating. We must pay attention to this. Chen Ming knew very well what kind of harm would happen if the things in another dimension located the existence of the Empire. There is a high probability that the newborns of the Empire in the future will be deformed, and genetic engineering and cloning technology will also be blocked. Without the birth of newborns, the Empire will basically end up extinct. Although there may be no problem within 1 or 200 years, or even 5 or 600 years due to the existence of cryostasis technology. But as time goes by, because the Empire must be maintained, the dormant people must be awakened, and people will eventually die. The only way seems to be that the Empire has to move away from its original location. Find a new area in the universe that can accommodate the existence of the Empire. But the afterglow of a small afterglow star field next to it cannot be relocated at will, and a huge empire spanning countless star fields is obviously even more impossible. And even if it is successfully relocated, the original territory of the Empire will become the source of invasion from another dimension and the seedbed of development. As long as those things are not completely dealt with, the next territory of the Empire will sooner or later encounter these same problems. But this is too far away. As long as we can deal with people who have experienced dimensional infection and prevent them from contacting each other, there will be no such trouble. Moreover, Chen Ming suddenly realized a problem in the president's words and asked, "Who else will study cloning technology to cause new dimensional infection? Humans definitely don't dare to do it. Yuhui didn't know before. With this experience, they definitely don't dare to do it next time. Will there be new dimensional infection?" The president sounded a little surprised, as if he was surprised by Chen Ming's idea. "Yuhui may not, but I think you think too well of humans. You may not know how many cloning research institutes are closed down in the Empire every year. Is there anyone who is crazy enough to do such a thing? The Empire has such a large territory, so many planets have been occupied, and the population has long been unknown. There are always fearless people and crazy people among so many people." Chen Ming heard 2 key words and subconsciously asked, "Zhuijing." They are only a part of it. You can ask Wuan for the specific content of this intelligence. Chen Ming raised his head and glanced at the boss. The boss nodded slightly and said, "I'll tell you later." Chen Ming lowered his head again and looked at the terminal. The president almost finished explaining why he called this time and said, "So that's it. The possibility of dimensional infection will never be zero as long as there are people. Let's stop here for today. I'll rearrange my plans for the future. If you have any questions, we'll talk over video next time. I'll contact you through Wuan in 2 days. Goodbye." The president hung up the phone a little anxiously. The communication ended again. There was no sound of anyone talking in the ward, only silence. Chen Ming was thinking about the troubles he might face as a person who experienced dimensional infection, and the boss seemed to be recalling the past. However, he did not experience that period personally, so he quickly returned from the memory to the present. He said to Chen Ming, "Xiao Ming, since you only need to communicate with the president by phone in the future, there is no need to be confined to the pirate space station. What are your plans?" Chen Ming immediately changed what he was thinking and replied, "I have some things to deal with in the space station. Let's leave after I contact the president." "Okay." The boss nodded and said, "Then let me tell you what the president said just now." "Okay." It happened that Chen Ming was also interested in these things in the Empire that he could not normally touch, so he immediately agreed. First of all, there are indeed people who are conducting cloning experiments now, but they are all small forces with some assets. After all, the big forces know the consequences of doing such things. And the leader of those small forces is Zhuijing. Chen Ming interrupted, "But I heard that Zhuijing is supported by a big force behind the scenes." "Yes, it is to protect oneself by keeping the enemy, but those who support it know the limits. This kind of cloning experiment is something they can't do. It is done by the lunatics in Zhuijing itself. Who would take the initiative to perish with the entire empire when he has money and plenty of time to enjoy life? Normal people have no reason to do such a thing, but Zhuijing's lunatics are different, you know?" Chen Ming agrees with this very much. The boss continued, "Fortunately, The Empire has comprehensive supervision over the direction of all materials needed for cloning experiments, and any problems can be found immediately. So at least until now, the people of Zhuojing have not caused any consequences. But recently there have been reports that they seem to be trying to link the fictional god in their doctrine to things in another dimension. The control is being stepped up in the country. Because of the dimensional infection you encountered in Yuhui, the control will definitely be stricter. You don't need to worry too much. It's a pity that these Zhuojing people can't be killed completely. You never know where there are people who believe in this and preach. They may pop up again one day. Chen Ming asked a question after hearing this. Is it possible for them to target me? After all, I have a grudge against them. And there is this incident. If they want to talk about their beliefs, wouldn't it be appropriate to come after me? The boss thought about Chen Ming's statement and said, "It is indeed appropriate to kill a psychic like you who can completely blaspheme the teachings of Zhuojing with the existence of the dimension they want to believe in, the practice of their doctrine. If they really do this, I'm afraid their influence will be completely suppressed in the country, and it may even appear directly on the table." The boss suddenly changed the subject and said, "But the second dimensional infection incident happened in Yuhui's territory, and now there are only a few people who know the news. By the time the news really spreads, you should have left. Who can find you?" The boss reached out and patted Chen Ming's shoulder and said, "There's no need to worry too much. Okay, you take a rest first, recover, and then go to work. You can also find me if you need anything. You know where I am." Okay. The boss stayed at the highest point for a while and then left. Chen Ming was left alone in the ward. It just so happened that he also needed to spend some time to count how many things he had to do now. However, just as Chen Ming lay down, the factory director suddenly contacted him. "Xiao Ming, I heard that you were back?" Chen Ming sat up again and said to the terminal in his hand, "Yes, I am at the dock now. Is it on Yu Hui's ship, or the one brought back by Lao Wu?" "The boss's ship, but now it's mine." "Congratulations, it's only been a few months, and you've driven from a mining ship to a cruiser. It's just luck." "Nonsense." The factory director has been in contact with Chen Ming for so long. Of course he knows that Chen Ming's ability to obtain a cruiser is not based on luck, but on ability. But Chen Ming still said in a serious manner, "Why is it that no one believes the truth?" "Okay, no more nonsense. I have something to talk to you about. If you are free later, come to my place. I have something to give you." "What is it?" "It's a bit complicated. You will know when you come." "Okay." Since the factory director said so, Chen Ming simply stopped lying down. He pulled out the needle on the back of his hand with the medical equipment next to him and changed out of his hospital gown. Prepare to get off the ship. When he went down, Chen Ming habitually put on a protective suit. But he thought about it and simply transformed the protective suit into a civilian-type power armor for handling work, in case someone knew his past habits and recognized him through the protective suit. Then he went directly into the space station through the exclusive passage of the cruiser level dock and went to the space station administration building. This time, Chen Ming went there to meet with the factory director and confirm what the factory director wanted to see him about. By the way, he also had to help the factory director complete something he had promised before he left the space station. Checking the location in advance would also make it easier to do it later. On the way, Chen Ming also contacted Hui Huang and asked, "How are you these 2 days?" Huang's answer is always so quick, "I'm fine. Because of you, I can directly connect to the human network. There is a lot of knowledge that I am very interested in for me to learn. As long as there is enough energy supply, I can stay here for a long time." Yeah. Chen Ming was not surprised by this situation. It can only be said that all Yuhui are basically like this. When there is work, work, and when there is no work, find opportunities to study. Every day can be said to be very fulfilling. Chen Ming then asked, "Then how did you find out that something was wrong with my situation before?" "Because your spiritual power has weakened the influence on me. I think you may have encountered some problems, so I contacted the boss through the emergency contact you left with me." Chen Ming frowned slightly. If his spiritual power would weaken the control over Yuhui due to the exhaustion of his mental power, then he must be prepared in advance. Is it significantly weakened? Yes, obviously. The blessing your psychic power gave me on the superior logic block has almost disappeared before. Question mark. Wait, what blessing? What happened to your superior logic block? Now it was Hui Huang's turn to be confused. It said, your spiritual power can enhance my ability in the superior logic block, increasing my computing power by about 20%. Isn't this your spiritual power? Hui Huang's question made Chen Ming a little nervous for a while. He seriously thought about whether Hui Huang was framing him, and then came to the conclusion that it shouldn't be the case. And Hui Huang did help Chen Ming contact the boss through its feelings. Otherwise, Chen Ming should still be lying on the ground at this time, or just found by the boss who had not waited for his contact. However, Chen Ming also had to confirm a few things first to avoid problems when using psychic power to control new Yuhui individuals in the future. Then, in addition to my blessing on your advantage logic block, what about the influence of my psychic power on you? Has it weakened? This has not changed, only the blessing of psychic power has weakened. Well, okay, wait for me. Chen Ming immediately opened Hui Huang's panel. After he actively ignored most of the useless information on the panel, there were only a few lines of valuable information left. They were weapons, armor, engine, and important equipment. The rest of the 18,000 radiation capacity, 1,000 radiation dissipation, and fuel reserves are not important. In front of Chen Ming's ability, as long as the radiation capacity is not accumulated to the full extent in an instant, and he still has enough mental strength, he can save it in any situation. Of course, let's forget about the main weapons. This thing can instantly cause at least 50,000 radiation energy to the ship, and a serious cruiser has no room for resistance at all. In fact, the importance of armor and engine can also be regarded as general importance. After all, they are all the general armor and general engine of the Yuhui ship, nothing special. Chen Ming has no ability to modify it now, and there is no need to modify it. So these two things are definitely not as important as the weapons of the Brilliant class, the 4 tachyon spears, and the special equipment of the ship in operation. However, Chen Ming once again removed some standard equipment that normal ships have. The only remaining ones are the high-energy focusing system module and ship AI overclocker that are basically equipped on Yuhui's advanced ships, which are of some value. Of course, there are also jump engine and flash engine. However, the most important thing about the Brilliant class compared to ships of the same level is the plasma reserve system that is unique to this type of ship. This is a system that can use the special devices on the Brilliant class to collect plasma floating in space, which is used to provide special effects for the Brilliant class's engines or energy weapons. Equipped with 2 subsystems named Plasma Burst Propulsion and Plasma Armed Entanglement. Improve the instantaneous output capacity of the engine and the output power of the weapon, or directly use plasma to attack. But looking at it this way, Chen Ming still did not find a column related to his psychic power on the panel. Could it be on the core panel? Chen Ming opened the Brilliant Alpha Class core panel. Afterglow Alpha Class AI Core, Brilliant. Manufacturer, Afterglow BP, 55 Colony Far North Industrialized Production Center. Alpha Class Core Bonus, Galaxy Coordination. Self-Awareness, Existence. Computing Power, Galaxy Level. Executable Operations, None. Really? There is a new column on the core panel that Chen Ming has never seen before, Alpha Class Core Bonus, Galaxy Coordination. It's just that such an obvious line should be visible to him as long as he is not blind. Why doesn't he have any impression of it? Chen Ming thought about it carefully. Suddenly he realized that he seemed to have never opened the panel of the still-running Alpha Class core before. He only saw their panels when he got the core of G3 before, and when he got the core given by Baiquan. But at that time, G3 was dead and the core was empty. The core given by Baiquan has also been in hibernation. It may be necessary for this core to stop hibernation and receive Chen Ming's spiritual power after starting to determine the specific core bonus. Therefore, the core given by Baiquan naturally does not have this content related to the advantage logic block. Fortunately, it is not too late to know now. After all, it is only at this stage that he really needs to start using the alpha level core. And the effect of Hui Huang's galaxy coordination is just as it said to Chen Ming just now. and it is related to its advantage logic block. When Hui Huang performs any form of management below the galaxy level, it can improve computing power. However, there is no specific value on the panel. The specific value depends on Hui Huang's own feeling, which is only 20%. Such an alpha-level core bonus effect gives Chen Ming the feeling that it should be regarded as one of the concrete manifestations of his psychic ability. It is also his auxiliary psychic ability that can be regarded as an auxiliary psychic ability in a serious sense. The effect is to make Yu Hui, who is controlled by him, have an additional bonus in the advantage logic block. To be honest, Chen Ming feels that his psychic power is a bit strange. But thinking carefully, his psychic power itself is a rather strange one. After all, he has never heard of the panel from his boss. The psychic power of others is obviously completely different from his psychic power with a specific panel, but a more virtual existence. But it doesn't matter. At least Chen Ming seems to be more convenient with this specific panel. After knowing all this, Chen Ming turned back and said to Hui Huang, "Okay, I understand. In short, my psychic power will directly add bonus to you when I affect you, right?" "Yes, I always thought you knew this." Chen Ming was a little embarrassed. It can only be said that this is also a disadvantage of the panel. With a panel that can easily view psychic power, he will not think too much about the effect of his psychic power in normal times. He must pay more attention in the future. When the psychic energy increases, you can personally feel the effect of the psychic energy, or simply go through the panel again to avoid missing it like now. Chen Ming took the initiative to skip this topic and said to Hui Huang, "So how do you feel about the effect of this psychic energy blessing?" "Very good. We Yu Hui have always only felt the negative effects of psychic energy, and have never felt the positive blessing of psychic energy. Your existence has changed all this. It makes me more convinced that your existence is the savior of our Yu Hui." Chen Ming followed Hui Huang's words and had an idea. "Then do you think my psychic energy can attract some alpha-level Yu Hui to join me? There are so many of you Yu Hui, there will always be a few Yu Hui who have the same idea as you, right? Or there should be individuals who want to further improve their abilities." Hui Huang thought seriously for a while and said, "I think it's possible, but it's better not now. After you establish a colony outside the human empire, then the colonies will definitely be extremely fragile in the early stage of development. It is worth it for them. And the initial construction of the colonial development only requires those you brought before. Existence, plus the glory, Huiyao, and Baiquan HRYY1, APGU2. The one that Chen Ming has only recently controlled, belonging to the internal control of the giant dock, and the alpha level remaining in the 14th Army. This is far beyond the normal level for the construction of a colony. There is really no need to be greedy. It is definitely more appropriate to develop honestly than to be aggressive. That's it. You stay at the dock for a few days, and then we will set off." "Got it." Chen Ming ended this conversation with "brilliant." But just as he was about to close the several pages of panels that popped up in front of him, he suddenly noticed that there was a small plus sign behind the column alpha level core bonus on the panel. When he selected it, a prompt popped up. He can consume 100% of his maximum mental power to get a choice. As for the content of the choice, as Chen Ming clicked the confirmation button, a new panel he had never seen popped up. A total of 6 choices were placed in front of him: efficient logistics, emergency repair, war damage control, enclosed process, salvage operation, and industrial planning. These 6 options mean that Chen Ming can use a lot of mental power to make them become Brilliant's alpha-level bonuses, just like the galaxy coordination that Brilliant himself obtained because of the superior logic block. And their specific effects are basically the same as their names. Efficient logistics can improve the individual's computing power in the optimal path algorithm. If Chen Ming is right, then the improvement of computing power in this area can affect the logistics and transportation efficiency of his entire colony and even the entire galaxy in the future. And because the conditions and environment of logistics and transportation will change, this is a capability that needs to be used for a long time. Emergency repair can improve the computing power for damage confirmation and repair plan planning. If it is used in the colony, the only use Chen Ming can think of is to quickly repair various equipment when they fail. However, Chen Ming feels that its effect is more effective on the fleet. The damage suffered by the fleet can be quickly controlled and repaired. It is indeed good in Chen Ming's case, but the problem is that Chen Ming's own ability has already declared the death of this choice. Then there is battle damage control, which can improve the calculation power when the ship is damaged in battle and conducts battle damage control. This effect seems to be similar to emergency repair, but the effect can be applied to a smaller range, almost concentrated on the ship, or even a ship. Although the effect seems to be stronger than emergency repair, it can analyze the most reasonable control plan for all damages in an instant during wartime. However, Chen Ming's ability can only be said to make this battle damage control completely lose any meaning of existence. So Chen Ming continued to look at the next one, close process. It can improve the calculation power when planning the work content of spacecraft maintenance process, industrial equipment maintenance process, and colonial infrastructure maintenance process. The effect can probably optimize the maintenance process of these facilities, reduce the scale of industrial facilities, and reduce losses. This is a valuable ability. Next is salvage operation. It can improve the computing power when salvaging abandoned ships, cleaning the battlefield, and confirming the damage of damaged spacecraft. It seems to be useless. In Chen Ming's opinion, it is unnecessary to optimize the cleaning of the battlefield. If you win, you can clean it slowly, and if you lose, there is no need to clean it. The only place where it can be applied seems to be when Yu Hui wants to quickly take out the core of the sunken ship on the battlefield. But the effect can only be said to be very general. Then the last, industrial planning. This industrial planning ability is the same as Chen Ming's spiritual power blessing obtained by Hui Huang itself because of the advantage logic block, that is, galaxy coordination. It's just that the scope of action is more refined. It does not lie in all the work within the galaxy, but is limited to the specific planning of industrial equipment. However, this ability does not limit the scale of the planned industrial facilities, from a small factory to an industrial colony, or even an industrial galaxy, all are under planning. And it is a planning of the entire industry, from input to production to output. The entire process can be optimized as a result. It can be said to be the top ability in logistics. Industrial planning, efficient logistics, and closed process are all options that Chen Ming prefers. But whether to make a decision so quickly, Chen Ming still plans to think about it first. So he contacted Hui Huang again. Mr. Chen Ming? In Hui Huang's doubts, Chen Ming directly said, "Ask you a question." You ask, "Will you manage the colony logistics system?" Yes, this is very important for the 4 colonies I managed in the galaxy before. What about salvaging the wrecked ship? Yes, this is what I have been doing before I was promoted to alpha level. At this point, Chen Ming probably understood. But to make sure it was correct, he still asked Hui Huang about the options that appeared on the remaining panels. Hui Huang's answer was also very simple. These are the abilities that I have mastered at the highest level and have spent the most time to learn. Then Chen Ming can be sure. The 6 options that appear on his panel are not given randomly, but the abilities that can get the bonus of the alpha level Yu Hui that he can solidify. And it seems that only one of these 6 abilities can be solidified, so he must make a careful choice. And Chen Ming has a feeling. The more refined and the smaller the coverage of these 6 abilities, the more bonuses they will get. For example, Hui Huang's current galaxy coordination is almost equivalent to directly increasing Hui Huang's computing power by 20%. Then it is possible to increase the other abilities that can only act on a smaller range by 100% or even 200%. But Chen Ming still needs to consider the specific choice, or go back and ask Hui Huang's thoughts. But not now, he has things to do at present. But Chen Ming still has some feelings. An innate advantage logic block, combined with an additional alpha level bonus learned the day after tomorrow. It is entirely possible to achieve greater advantages in terms of advantages, or to go further in terms of being able to cooperate with the advantage logic block. This is the most powerful bonus of his psychic power to the individual afterglow. The afterglow will have the most outstanding performance in his hands. These powerful afterglows are the foundation for his future survival. After Chen Ming confirmed the bonus of his psychic power to Yu Hui, he did not directly contact the other Yu Hui who was parked at the 14th Legion. He still planned to deal with it together with other things he had to deal with in Baiquan later, so as not to have to look for him several times. Hui Yao was still in the temporary galaxy and seemed to be very happy with Gamma A, so Chen Ming was not in a hurry to disturb him. He could confirm Hui Yao's situation after he left the pirate space station and set off. Chen Ming was not in a hurry for the core on hand. Anyway, there would be time later. None of these alpha-level Yu Hui could escape. Now he still had to go to find the factory director first. Chen Ming soon arrived at the building of the space station administration. During the time when Chen Ming was away, the whole building seemed to have been renovated and many security measures were added. So much so that when he wanted to go in, he was stopped by the guard at the door. After all, he was wearing a power armor, although it was for civilian use, but he must be stopped. His ID card was previously handed over to Old Wu, and he still hasn't gotten it back. Chen Ming originally wanted to contact the factory director directly and ask him to let him go. But he thought about it carefully again and finally decided to call Old Wu. Old Wu immediately got on the phone and said, "Hello? Hello, Old Wu. My card is with you, right? Please send it to me. I'm at the entrance of the administration now."
Now?
"Yes, now." "Okay." Old Wu agreed quickly. He ran away from the repair shop very quickly. He rushed to the entrance of the administration even faster. The desire to slack off made him rush all the way from the repair shop to the administration in just 10 minutes. When he saw Chen Ming, who was wearing a civilian power armor near the gate, he was stunned for a moment, and then he realized who had such a strange habit. Old Wu greeted Chen Ming from a distance. "Hey, Xiao Ming, are you back?" "I came back earlier. Haven't you seen the boat?" "Yes, I just said that." He came to Chen Ming, greeted the guard, and handed over Chen Ming's ID card. The faces of several guards who were still a little wary changed slightly and became more respectful. Without confirming Chen Ming's identity, they directly made way. "Please come in." It seems that the factory director or someone else had given instructions to Chen Ming in advance. After helping Chen Ming enter the building smoothly and confirming that there was no one around, Old Wu habitually put his hand on Chen Ming's shoulder and said with a very touched look, "You didn't ask Lao Lu, but asked me to help you deliver the card. It seems that you still care about our friendship." "Of course. So what are you doing here?" Chen Ming opened the visor of his helmet, smiled at Old Wu beside him and said, "I came to see the factory director." Old Wu's hand instantly loosened from Chen Ming's shoulder, but was held by Chen Ming again. Old Wu struggled for a few times and found that he couldn't struggle free, so he smiled awkwardly and said, "Haha, I suddenly remembered that I seem to have something else to do, but it's rare for you to come back. Remember to find me when I get off work in the evening. I'll treat you to dinner." That's it. After he said that, he suddenly turned around flexibly, pulled out the arm that was held by Chen Ming, and ran away. Chen Ming waved at him and didn't care. A person walked into the building and found the elevator. However, he did not rush to the factory director's office, but followed his memory to find the office of the director of the administration bureau. Chen Ming did not rush in directly, but knocked on the door very politely. A voice that sounded a bit greasy to him came from inside. "Come in." Chen Ming pushed the door open and saw a fat middle-aged man, about 40 or 50 years old, sitting behind the only desk in the room. There was no one else in the office at this time. The fat middle-aged man looked up and saw Chen Ming in power armor. His hand immediately reached into the drawer next to him and asked very cautiously, "Who are you? Who are you looking for?" Chen Ming did not answer the first question, but said, "I'm looking for the director." The fat middle-aged man frowned and replied, "I am." Chen Ming pretended to look into the office and confirmed the environment of the office. "What about the previous director?" The new director's face darkened, pointed to the side and said, "Go to the next door. He has been demoted to deputy director." Chen Ming nodded and turned away. The new director's voice came from behind again. "The eyes are on the head for use." Chen Ming did not refute him, nor did he get angry, and just left the director's office. However, he left a small mechanical device in the office. This thing will be useful later. There is no need for him to be angry with a dead person. Chen Ming did not go to the deputy director's office next. After all, he was not too familiar with the current deputy director. So Chen Ming did not hang around and went directly to the factory director. After pushing open the door of the office, the factory director stretched out his hand and beckoned Chen Ming to come over. Chen Ming dismantled the power armor on his body on the way over, and then sat in front of the factory director. The factory director pushed 2 cards and several paper newspapers on the table in front of Chen Ming. "What is this?" Chen Ming took it and found that it was an academic newspaper. There was a line of big words on its front page. "Good news. Cinda Rockwell has made great research results in antimatter technology research." The news that the factory director pushed to Chen Ming was about the progress of Shinda's antimatter technology research. So Chen Ming immediately thought of the finished miniature antimatter reactor he had seen in the Special Operations Team of the 14th Corps. As he thought before, the source was Shinda. But he didn't expect that the company had come up with results in such a short time. Chen Ming remembered that from the time he got the antimatter technology to the time he gave it to the company, and then to today, it was less than 2 months in total, right? This newspaper was only a week old. Combined with the fact that the 14th Corps got the antimatter reactor in advance, the time when the results really came out would only be earlier. If it was really developed by relying on the antimatter shockwave given by Chen Ming, then this scientific research technology is a bit exaggerated. So Chen Ming thought it was not the case. It should be that Shinda had been researching antimatter for a long time. Then, after getting the antimatter shockwave, a weapon that already had a certain practical value, these antimatter technology researchers were inspired. Then they came up with the results in a seemingly short time. The news contents in several other academic newspapers and periodicals are basically the same, all about the research on antimatter. It seems that Shinda Company did not hide it, but made the technology public. It may be that other companies gave them some benefits, or the government or some other department asked Shinda Company to do so. In short, it is impossible that Shinda Company took the initiative to give things away. Chen Ming put down several newspapers, pointed his fingers on 2 cards, and looked at the factory director. The factory director knew Chen Ming's doubts and explained, "One of these 2 cards is a savings card, and the other is a storage card. The savings card should contain 3 billion, and the storage card seems to contain the results of antimatter research, a design blueprint of a microreactor, plus a semi-finished antimatter shockwave that you brought back before, which has been modified and can be put into combat. All of them are the results of research using your stuff." The factory director then looked at the newspapers that Chen Ming put down and said, "Then the company also added your name to several antimatter papers that are said to be relatively important and published them. Take a closer look at these newspapers. There are cited papers at the bottom, and your name should be on them." Chen Ming just glanced at the title and brief content of the news and didn't look at the small print carefully. The second time he picked it up, he found that his name was really on it. In the middle of the names of the researchers, not at the beginning or the end. And Chen Ming remembered that these newspapers were all valuable ones in the academic world, and the research published on them was naturally very important. Therefore, if the researcher's name could be written on them, it would be something worth promoting. However, Chen Ming's recent social circle was not in the academic circle, so he was not aware of the fact that his name was on these newspapers. And he was not quite sure whether this was the company's compensation for the antimatter shockwave he brought back before, or was it a reward? But why did he come at this time? And the company had already taken the initiative to give up its relationship with him before. Why did it do this? Chen Ming did not understand, so he asked, "What does the company want to do with such a strong attitude?" The factory director shrugged and said, "You can guess it casually. The company wants to make friends with you again?" Chen Ming sneered and said directly with a sarcastic tone, "What was the reason given by the company before? Are you not afraid of the war zone?" The factory director did not care about Chen Ming's attitude at all. He knew that Chen Ming was targeting the company, not him. But he still had to explain, because the 14th Legion is not afraid. Bai Quan shot the 2nd generation arranged by the war zone in front of all the soldiers of the entire Legion. And until now, nothing has happened, and he can even take 2 main battleships to go on missions. The people in the war zone dare not say a word. The company checked the situation. After all, they are the descendants of the high-level officials in the war zone. It is obviously unreasonable that Bai Quan, who came from the bottom, shot Bai Quan, and nothing happened. Then the company found out that Bai Quan had a special thing in his hand, so the company decided to hold the 14th Legion in this star area during this period of time. The factory director's words successfully aroused Chen Ming's curiosity, and he couldn't help asking, "So what is it?" "You can understand it as privilege." Chen Ming didn't react for a while and asked again, "What is it?" This time the factory director didn't act like a riddle man and explained, "Bai Quan has a gun in his hand. It was given to him by a big shot who happened to be inspecting during his promotion ceremony to Major General. To commend him for his great achievements in the past, which enabled him, an ordinary person with no background who rose all the way on his own, to be promoted to Major General." Guess who it was? Wouldn't it be the one at the top? The factory director did not answer Chen Ming's question, but continued. "A total of 6 bullets were given to him along with this gun. This is the privilege." Chen Ming suddenly understood and said, "As long as everything is allowed within the imperial law, he can rely on this gun and the 6 bullets to handle it, right?" The factory director nodded and said, "The person who took over Bai Chuan's work after Bai Quan was injured made a big mistake when commanding the battle. It was really a big problem that should be brought to the military court. If you give him a period of time, the people behind him will definitely help to operate. Although he may be demoted, he will definitely not die." Then Bai Quan directly used his privilege to kill him. It's just that Bai Quan's reason for doing this is not sure. After all, the long-term detention and killing of that person also caused the war zone to make trouble, causing chaos within the 14th Corps for several days. Although the people in the war zone dare not touch Bai Quan, they still dare to affect the 14th Corps. So the company has not understood this matter so far. If he lets the person go directly, the war zone will definitely not interfere with his normal work in the 14th Corps. And that person is really not worth his bullet. The factory director and the company don't know why Bai Quan did this. But Chen Ming is very clear. Because this is what Bai Quan said before, he will give him an explanation. Let the people who did those things give Chen Ming an explanation. He wants to use this in exchange for the opportunity to continue to cooperate with Chen Ming. Chen Ming thought that the Major General was so awesome before. But if you think about it carefully, it seems that there is no law that stipulates that a Major General can kill people in public. Otherwise, what is the use of a military court? So it is because Bai Quan chose to use his privilege to kill that person that he can continue to sit safely in the top position of the 14th Corps here. Otherwise, he would have been dragged down by the furious high-level officials in the war zone. Since Bai Quan is willing to use such things to gain Chen Ming's trust, he is indeed a person who deserves Chen Ming's trust. At least after the previous cooperation, Chen Ming feels that his relationship with Bai Quan can be closer. The factory manager didn't see anything from Chen Ming's face and continued, "Anyway, that was the first shot he fired, and he still has 5 chances left." So the company decided to stick with the thigh. With the previous cooperative relationship, the company's cooperation with the 14th Legion is definitely better than the previous Star Zone Army. The Star Zone Army is already corrupt. Oh, by the way, Bai Quan and you should have a special relationship, right? Chen Ming was suddenly stunned and asked, "Why do you say that?" "Because the company just sent people to the 14th Legion 2 days ago and discussed the sales of Sky Steel after the redevelopment of other cooperation. Then our people who went there just saw a Yuhui cruiser following the 14th Legion's fleet back. It was not coerced, nor was it forcibly controlled. It just followed the 14th Legion's fleet normally, keeping a certain distance. You are the only one who can do this. So, the relationship between the company and you must be picked up again, and think about it carefully." Chen Ming thought that Bai Quan's reason for doing things was guessed, but he didn't expect it was because of this. In that case, did the company know that I had a good relationship with Bai Quan and had such an idea, or did they have the intention to get back on good terms with me before? The factory manager said without thinking, "Then they were ready to get back on good terms with you before. I have the most contact with you. So the company told me about this matter before and asked me to handle it. You know my situation. I can't do anything. I can't escape. But you also know that I can't use our relationship to do such a thing. Whether your relationship with the company is good or not does not affect our relationship. then the company wants to get back on good terms with you mainly because the environment is changing. Baekwon has the privilege and ability to fight against the war zone, and he himself is also always working. Although the 14th Corps was in chaos for 2 days, Baekwon suppressed it with tough measures. Then he was preparing the fleet and wanted to do something. These are all obvious. The company is definitely willing to invest in such a person. Since Baekwon and the war zone have conflicts, and you have a grudge against the war zone, it is natural to contact you again. Chen Ming thought about it carefully and concluded, so it's still because of Baekwon? The factory director thought about it and did not deny, you can say that. Another reason is that the 14th Corps did not rescue you before, so you will probably not join the 14th Corps in the future, so the company has another idea. Anyway, you decide for yourself. Don't worry about me. I'm just helping to deliver the things and pass on the message. Chen Ming refused without thinking too much. Forget it. He just wanted to maintain a normal relationship with the factory director, Lao Wu and others. The company was like this. After all, there was the factory director, and the factory director was the descendant of the company's chairman and might be an illegitimate child. So Chen Ming was not completely hostile to the company, but the previous relationship could not be restored. And Shinda Company was a force, and interests were paramount. The company could lose face and come to him for the sake of interests. But Chen Ming was just one person now, and he could do things according to his own preferences. So he chose to refuse. The factory manager was not surprised by this result, but continued to push the 2 cards on the desk and said, then these things will still be given to you, even if it is the company's compensation to you, so that you don't mind what happened before. Just treat it as the beginning. I mean the relationship that was more than 30 years ago, almost 40 years ago. Chen Ming thought about the time point the factory manager was referring to and said, that was when I just joined the company, right? You mean starting from the beginning? Almost. Since you said so, the company's files will be transferred out later. What do you mean? Transfer to our talent pool of the Gallo 2-star district government, or directly transfer you to Lao Wu. Lao Wu has a colony in this star district, and it can be transferred there with official certification. I asked Lao Wu, and he has no objection. Chen Ming suddenly interrupted, wait a minute, can it be transferred? I remember that the Star District military issued a wanted order for me before, right? When I saw it before, although it said that the army was taken over by the 14th Legion, the wanted order seemed to have never been removed. The factory director waved his hand and said, that's not the case. It's been a long time since the 14th Legion was taken over. I have given you a wanted. You are still the original situation now, that is, the company's employees, so the company is afraid that you will feel trouble, and you will take the initiative to help you deal with this identity. Chen Ming couldn't help but say, why didn't you see them as active before? Over there, and then your company can't get it, that will definitely not play with you. It's different now, you are alive, and the 14th Army will support you. The board of directors refuted. The recent sessions are basically unilaterally scolding other people, and they are discussing how to make a good relationship with you. Pure interest relationships will never last long. When his value is no longer comparable to that of others, the company may do something strange again. Although his ability makes him confident that nothing can compare to his value. But Chen Ming does not want to maintain this kind of relationship, so forget it. Chen Ming did not respond to the factory director's words. The factory director also understood Chen Ming's meaning and continued to wait for Chen Ming's response to his previous question. Chen Ming took out the terminal and looked at his identity resume. There were some changes from when he looked at it before. Before, the end of the resume stopped at the mining space station and stayed there for 30 years. It was not until recently that a few new paragraphs were added. The general meaning is that Chen Ming was frozen and dormant for 30 years, and then he was taken back by the company and joined a research institute within the company to complete important research on antimatter technology. The bad things that Chen Ming actually experienced during this period were skipped in the formal resume. If Chen Ming chooses to move the file, then there should be 2 more lines added to the file later. Terminate the contract with the company and then join other organizations. Chen Ming took a look at it and closed the resume and asked the factory manager, it doesn't matter whether this thing is transferred or not, right? It really doesn't matter, but the company's top means that they will help you clean up your mess, and you can start your relationship with the company from scratch. After listening to the factory manager's words, Chen Ming finally made a decision. Then keep it for me first. I may have to go in and out of the space station in the future, and it will be more convenient to have this identity. If possible, move my resume to the company in this space station. Of course, Chen Ming did this for another reason besides the reason he said. The pirate space station is Chen Ming's first stop after returning to the human world, and it is also the stop where he stayed the longest. Leaving a file resume here can also be regarded as leaving him with a thought that he is willing to come back in the future. The factory director had no objection to this. Okay, you can decide for yourself, but the company should be very happy. Then you'd better not let them be too happy too early. I'm leaving soon. The factory director spread his hands and said nothing, but took out a few documents from the drawer and handed them to Chen Ming. What is this? Take a look for yourself. Chen Ming picked up the documents and flipped through them, and found that these documents that needed his signature were used to fill in some previously missing procedures. In addition to confirming Chen Ming's resume and transferring the files, his contribution to antimatter research can also be confirmed. Because the research related to antimatter technology involves the government's rewards for researchers who have made major scientific research results. Now Chen Ming can be sure that this is the reason why Shinda Company made antimatter technology public, so that the 14th Army also obtained the product of this technology early. It was the government that required Shinda Company to disclose it and gave the company enough rewards and compensation. Basically, it's honor, status, and the most essential money. Of course, for the institute and the company, there are also things like government investment. As someone who signed his name in the antimatter research, Chen Ming can naturally get some of the rewards. But Chen Ming actually only needs money now. As for honor, it will be determined when his name is written on it. As for status, this includes social status and actual status. Social status is relatively unimportant. After all, even if most ordinary people know that a person has status, at most they only know that this person is a researcher who has researched something good, and it doesn't matter what they have researched. Although the research on antimatter reactors is of great significance, it can free the Empire's energy supply from the constraints of spacecraft fuel. However, it should not have such a big impact in the short term, so social status is just for fun. But actual status is different. First of all, the first place where antimatter reactors are applied is definitely military products. Just like the miniature antimatter reactors that the 14th Legion got before. Starting with military products, antimatter technology will be gradually used. Therefore, within the Empire's top management, researchers and research institutes that have researched antimatter technology will definitely be given considerable attention. As a result, the actual status of these researchers will be greatly improved. Although they may not be directly recruited by the government, it is still okay to give them some idle positions in the system. But the problem is that Chen Ming will not develop in the Empire in the future. So status is really not as good as some money. And even if it really comes to the time when you need to have actual status to do things, there are also a few people with high enough status among the people he knows, a second-generation company, a major general of the Empire, and a top psychic. He doesn't need to worry about having a place in the Empire. No matter who these three people are, as long as Chen Ming takes the initiative to ask them to do something, they will definitely be willing to help. So Chen Ming does not need additional rewards. Money is enough. And this money is really useful to him. In addition, as long as Chen Ming signs a few more documents, the company will continue to give Chen Ming a batch of money, which is considered to be Chen Ming's giving up some rights in exchange. Chen Ming confirmed that there were no problems with these documents and asked the factory director directly if there were any problems. All these documents were signed. After the factory director called someone to take all the documents away, the troublesome business was considered to be dealt with. Chen Ming acted a little more relaxed, leaning back in his chair casually and said, "I just went to the director's office." "Oh." The factory director reached out and pressed on the desk in front of him. The office door was locked, and the surveillance in the room was also turned off. The factory director said with some surprise, "I thought you forgot." "That's impossible. I can't forget you even if I forget to eat." Chen Ming leaned against the desk and said, I just met that fat pig director, and I left something in his office. You can do it any time, but it's better to wait until I leave. It should be in the next few days. The factory director couldn't help showing a little pleasure on his face. The person who disgusted him finally didn't live for a few days. He himself was not good at taking action against people inside, but Chen Ming was completely different. Thank you for your trouble. What's the trouble with this? Chen Ming suddenly stopped talking halfway. In the doubt of the factory director, Chen Ming said, I saw the director leave his office. There is no one in his office now. You want to? Where is the terminal I gave you before? Here. The factory director took out a terminal from the drawer and handed it to Chen Ming. Chen Ming stretched out his hand and pressed it, and the metal liquid flowed out from his palm, covering the terminal. He slightly modified the terminal so that it could use safer and more secretive technology to remotely control the signal. Then, Chen Ming connected the signal of the gadget he left in the director's office to the terminal, and he directly remotely transformed this gadget into a micro-robot. The video sent back by the micro-robot's camera was clearly displayed on the terminal, while Chen Ming transformed the gadgets he left in the director's office into micro-robots. He also hacked into their monitoring signals through the internal network of the administration. Although the administration has strengthened its internal security after the incident some time ago, the security of the internal network has naturally improved. But these security technologies are nothing to Chen Ming now. Although Chen Ming studied engineering before, he still knows programming and other things. Driving and building spaceships are definitely not free from these aspects. He has been learning when he was in Yuhui's territory some time ago, and he has just learned some very useful techniques from the member of the Special Operations Team of the 14th Corps. Of course, Chen Ming did not learn it directly from him. But after that electronic technology teammate hacked into Yuhui's factory, Chen Ming used the Yuhui individual they installed to restore the hacking method of that team member, which can be regarded as a stolen technology. Although it was stolen, it may not be learned completely. But Chen Ming is now inside the administration, and he also has the help of the authority provided by the insider of the factory director. The security system of the pirate space station is almost the same as being unguarded in front of him. So Chen Ming easily forced a small program into the administration system. However, Chen Ming's target is a director, and the relationship with the factory director is also here, so he did not do too much. He even took the initiative to package and record several vulnerabilities and threw them to the network security department. After he left, the file package will be automatically unpacked. Of course, this is not the vulnerability that Chen Ming used to hack into the administration, but other vulnerabilities he found, which he used as an excuse. He still left a backdoor in the administration, which may be useful in the future. After Chen Ming inserted the program into the administration's network and ran it, he successfully mastered the authority of the entire floor of the director's office of the administration, including the monitoring authority of the office. The images of the monitoring equipment in the office began to loop, and only time passed normally. Doing so allows his little robot to climb onto the desk directly and connect to the director's computer. At this time, Chen Ming said to the factory director, "You said before that the new director did all kinds of disgusting things, so there must be something left in the computer, right? It's very likely, but I think it's more likely in the terminal he carries with him. It's okay, let's check it first, and we'll talk about it if we can't find it." Chen Ming searched in front of the factory director. As a result, he really found a hidden encrypted file in his computer. Then there's nothing to say. Place your own people to eat empty salaries. Choose rubbish supply companies to take kickbacks. Privately forming gangs and suppressing dissidents. Various corruption and bribery. Even relying on various means, he got a valuable escort-class cruise ship. This is a civilian ship specially used by rich people, often equipped with a large number of leisure and entertainment facilities that combat or operational spacecraft do not have. Generally speaking, it is only used in prosperous star fields or places close to prosperous star fields to let some rich people experience the space environment. In the marginal star field, this kind of ship clearly represents two words: fat meat. However, the director is at least a bit smart. At least according to the file records in his computer, he has never taken it out casually. It seems that he only occasionally stays there for a day or two to experience the entertainment facilities on it. After all, it is a luxury product sold specifically to rich people, which is better than the ones in the pirate space station city. In short, all the above things added together are definitely not something a director can get under normal circumstances. It is impossible to explain it just for a cruise ship. Although this is in the pirate space station is just a name for the company to roam in the gray area to grab profits. If this kind of corruption is really done, someone in the company will take the initiative to deal with it. And the fact that the new director is corrupt and accepting bribes is here, and under normal circumstances, it is definitely much easier than just killing him directly. However, although Chen Ming saw enough evidence to bring him down, he still confirmed with the factory director. "What do you think of this man?" The factory director thought about it and said, "It's better to kill him. He was arranged by the company because of the exchange of interests. Even if there is this evidence, it is not certain that he can be killed. And it's a previous relationship. Even if the current director leaves, there will be a new one to replace him. It may be more troublesome to change someone. It's best to kill him directly, which can deter the newcomers. And I don't like him very much." "Okay." Chen Ming nodded and completely sentenced the current director to death in his heart. Since he had promised the factory director before, he had to do everything well. At this time, Chen Ming noticed through the surveillance outside the office that the director who had just left had returned and was approaching the office. He quickly restored the director's computer and then let the micro-robot hide in a hidden corner. The director looked a little sweaty and came into the office with someone half a minute later. This person was the captain of the guard team. Chen Ming had seen this person before when the Star Zone military infiltrated the space station to do things. He followed the former director's buttocks, and he had some impression of him. Although the captain of the guard looked normal to the director, he could not hide the disgust in his eyes. Of course, it might be that he didn't want to hide it at all. The director also knew that most people in the management bureau disliked him, but he could rely on his status to pressure people. Otherwise, the captain of the guard would not follow him here. After closing the door, the director said to the captain of the guard nervously, "Are you saying that the person who came to my office before was the Chen Ming who has been making a lot of noise recently?" The captain of the guard replied seriously, "That's how it's registered at the door, but no one knows who is under his power armor." The director suddenly became anxious, and his voice unconsciously rose, as if questioning, "Then why can such a person be allowed in? He just came to my office. If he is not Chen Ming, then what kind of person has a grudge against the company? Do you know what responsibility you will bear? He killed you? You." The captain of the guard team choked the director and then replied normally, "You have already watched the surveillance video just now. He came to find the director and asked you to confirm that the director was not there before leaving. Is there any problem with this?" The director pointed to the direction of the deputy director's office on the same floor and said, "Then I pointed him in the direction, but he didn't go there later. What does it mean?" "The deputy director is not in the building today. Maybe Chen Ming saw that the office was yours and called to ask? It's okay not to go to the office when he knows that the person is not there, right?" And Chen Ming's entry was actually arranged by the deputy director. As long as just let him in if you have his ID card. Also, Chen Ming has always been an employee of the company. Is there any problem in letting him in? The director raised his voice again, with obvious doubt in his tone. Can a psychic like him be an employee of the company? Are you suspicious of the psychic? Or are you suspicious of Chen Ming? Or are you suspicious of the company? The director knew he had said the wrong thing and quickly made amends. Who in the marginal star field doesn't know that psychics are real? And I didn't say I doubted the company. I mean, is he really Chen Ming? The captain of the guard did not answer directly, but said in a roundabout way, "Before, Chen Ming was also in this case. He goes in and out wearing protective clothing all day long and never takes it off. It's okay to change into power armor after not seeing him for a while, and it's not a big deal to run around in civilian power armor. If we can't afford it, we would have arranged all the civilian power armor at the dock. By the way, he used a pseudonym in the company before, Kong Shuiji. Oh no, it was Mu Shuikong. It wasn't until the military attack that his real name and his deeds became known. You may not know that, so you thought Chen Ming was new. The director's face became even gloomier when he heard this. Oh, and when he first came in wearing power armor, he was indeed stopped by the guard at the door, until an old employee of the company helped him deliver his ID card and let him go. There is no problem with the whole process. If you think there is a problem, you can ask the deputy director, or ask why the company has formulated rules and regulations in this way. The captain of the guard team was leading the director into a ditch with every word. At this point, he was too lazy to talk nonsense with the director, and finally said, "Then director, if everything is fine, I will leave. I still have a lot of things to do." "Wait a minute." The director stopped him again and said, "I want you to check if there is any problem with the security system, especially my floor, and send the report back to me." Although the captain of the guard was a little annoyed, he still said, "Got it." After he left, the director looked around nervously, picked up the terminal, and made a call. "The director of the network security department? Where is the director of your department? Let him come over." At this point, the director returned to his desk. Chen Ming and the factory director who were watching him could probably see what the director was going to do next, so they didn't continue to stare at him. At this time, Chen Ming still said casually, "He is anxious. Do you think he knows that I have a good relationship with you?" The factory director immediately replied, "Of course he knows, otherwise your reputation would not give him such a big stimulus." "Then he doesn't know your reputation?" "Yes, but it is because of my reputation that he can do things unscrupulously, and I can't kill people casually." "That's right, then forget about him. The director can do whatever he wants now. Anyway, he can't escape the final outcome." Chen Ming sat up a little straighter, restrained his expression, and said, "I have something else to tell you. It happened a long time ago." Chen Ming's sudden serious attitude made the factory director a little serious. "You tell me?" "When I first crawled out of the cryostasis chamber, I was still in the mining space station. When I woke up, I found a doctor's body in the room, and then I took a pistol and a terminal from the body. It was with these two things that I was able to land from the space station to the planet Ruemu below, and I have lived to this day. So I said before that if I can come back alive and have the ability, I will go back to collect the doctor's body and let him rest in peace. The doctor's name is, let me think, Ding He. Is that so?" The factory director showed a look of understanding on his face and said, "Then you don't have to worry too much about this. The 14th Legion has already taken the sky. The steel has been returned to the company, and the galaxy has been reopened. The company took over the space station some time ago, and it has been dealt with. Every employee who died will receive a pension. Although it's a bit late after more than 30 years, it's better than nothing. And generally speaking, their family members are likely not dead after 30 years, so the money will always reach them. And the same goes for the doctor you mentioned. Although the company cheated a little, it will definitely handle all such things." Chen Ming nodded and said, "Okay, then help me add some money. 200,000 should be about right, just as I give it to his family." "No problem. I'll give it to you if you find your family, and forget it if you don't." "Yeah." Finally completing something that he had remembered for a long time, Chen Ming couldn't help but lean back in his chair and relax a little, and his mind flashed back to the things that happened to him on the mining space station. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something and asked the factory manager with some curiosity, "By the way, are those bugs difficult to deal with?" "What bugs?" "There are a large number of Zerg on the mining space station. I remember the name is Thorn Zerg. They have strong adaptability and evolution ability. They can survive in a vacuum. They are very abnormal. I didn't dare to provoke them before." The factory manager recalled a little and said, "No, I also want to find out because of you when the company took over the space station. There is nothing moving in the entire mining space station. There are only some worthless organic growth creatures left, but those things are dead. There are indeed bugs, but they are all corpses. If you are sure that there are bugs still alive, is it possible that the original Star Zone military discovered your whereabouts before? Then when they went back to the space station to find your records, they cleaned up the bugs on it? Are there traces of fierce fighting on the space station?" This time, the factory manager recalled but didn't recall a result, so he took out a terminal and said, "Let me check. I just happen to have the records on hand." The factory manager opened the terminal and called up the investigation record file he had specifically requested. I found the part about the damage assessment of the space station. After looking at it for a while, he said, "Yes, there are, but they are all damages from 30 years ago. Many of them are obviously man-made attacks that damage the structure of the space station, and the self-defense weapons of the space station are basically destroyed by man-made external forces. This also proves that the destruction of the space station is not just a problem of insects. It should be that the military destroyed the space station's ability to resist and then directly abandoned the space station there. They are only responsible for blocking the outside and not giving the spacecraft inside a chance to escape. Then let the insects develop inside by themselves, and it is best to completely cover up their movements." But we did not find any signs of large-scale damage in the recent period. There are some small-scale ones, some in the dock and living area, all of which are traces left by deep-penetrating live ammunition. Chen Ming suddenly coughed and said, "I did this." "Oh." The factory manager silently recorded this incident and planned to send this information back so that the people who were investigating on the spot would not waste their energy on this and avoid making mistakes later. Chen Ming continued the previous topic and said, "But there is no large-scale damage and stability problems. I feel that this is not right. Because according to my estimation, the entire power generation area of the entire mining space station must be full of densely packed bugs. The military cannot deal with it without any traces." "But what about the bugs? Can they still grow wings and fly? Even if they have strong evolutionary abilities, it is useless to grow wings in space unless they can grow engines on their buttocks." "Maybe," the factory manager said casually as if joking, and then recorded what Chen Ming said. "I will help you pass the information about this matter to the people who are handling the matter over there. They are still dealing with the space station recently. The space station is already beyond saving, but the equipment on it can still be salvaged. The people there should be able to help you confirm whether there are any traces of bugs on the spot and see what they say. But I think it's better not to hold out hope. I feel that the real situation may have been rotten in the stomach of the Star Region military. Or you can ask the 14th Legion. You have a good relationship with them now. Maybe there are records and archives that can be shown to you." "Yes, it is true." Chen Ming immediately thought of Bai Quan. It happened that he would need to find Bai Quan to deal with things later, so he could ask him by the way. Chen Ming then had no more problems to deal with the factory director. He chatted for a few words and then stood up to say goodbye. "Then I have to leave soon. I have a lot of things to deal with in the next 2 days." "Okay." The factory director opened the blockade of the office and sent Chen Ming out of the office. Chen Ming was not in a hurry to find Bai Quan now. He still had some things of his own to deal with. For example, he needed to use the money in his hand. Chen Ming had a lot of money on hand now. Bai Quan gave 2 billion before, and the company gave 3 billion this time. And the money he can get after signing those documents just now, the factory director estimated that it should be 5 billion. Normally, it is not that much, but it is mainly because Chen Ming gave up some research patent ownership. These patents are the big part. Chen Ming also thought about relying on patents to make a long-term living. But he will not be in the empire for a long time in the future, so it is not easy to do such things all the time. Unless someone helps to watch. So Chen Ming just asked the factory director, but the factory director did not agree directly. He felt that this was a difficult sum of money, because there are too many people involved in the research institute. Although Chen Ming provided the antimatter shockwave, which made the research institute's technology a breakthrough, many studies were not directly participated in by Chen Ming. So it is very troublesome for Chen Ming to get a share of the money. It is better to sell it all at once and sell it to others, and you can make more money. So Chen Ming just signed a patent ownership transfer, and he also gave up most of the other benefits within the empire. If all these things are added together, the value is about 5 billion. Of course, there is only one key patent that Chen Ming has not sold, the patent for the antimatter reactor. Chen Ming sees the value of this thing very clearly. No matter how deep the water is, no matter how many troubles there are, Chen Ming will never give up this thing. The factory director also expressed his understanding. Anyway, Chen Ming's name has been written on various papers before, And various top scientific research newspapers and journals have also published it, and the government has also taken note of it. This patent cannot be escaped. It's just that the other patents and the 5 billion that Chen Ming gave up his rights and interests and sold them did not reach Chen Ming so quickly. It will take time for the company to transfer the money later, and the 5 billion will have to wait for a few days. However, Chen Ming now looked at the 2 billion that Bai Quan promised to give him for the second time and found that it had already arrived in his account. He now has a total of 7 billion in cash on hand, if the subsequent 5 billion is counted. That's 12 billion. Chen Ming had already decided on the use of this money before, and he wanted to use this money to buy industrial equipment. When Chen Ming moved their home from Yuhui before, he took the initiative to discard a lot of large, difficult to carry, or low-value, common equipment for the sake of efficiency. Although they were thrown away, they must be used in the early stage of colony construction. In other words, Chen Ming now has to find a way to make up for what he had thrown away before. The way to make up is to spend his own money to buy it. Although the value of the equipment Chen Ming threw away is lower than the value of the equipment he asked Hui Huang Huiyao to take away, that is only relative. Industrial equipment for building colonies is never cheap for individuals. The 12 billion he has on hand looks like a lot, but if he wants to buy those equipment for building colonies, it may not be enough. But when it is not enough, we will talk about it. In short, Chen Ming still want to find Lao Wu first. Lao Wu's way is still relatively open, and Chen Ming also knows where to find him. That must be the bar that Lao Wu took him to last time. Chen Ming changed himself into a new protective suit on the way and soon arrived at the bar. Although it was broad daylight and there were basically no people around, the bar was still open. When Chen Ming leaned over to the bar counter and asked for a glass of orange juice, the bartender suddenly said, "I recognize you. You were brought here by old Wu some time ago." "Oh? How did you know?" The voice and the protective clothing. "Are you here to drink or do business this time?" Chen Ming silently noted that his voice was also recognizable, and he would have to pay more attention to it in the future. Then he glanced at old Wu, who was drinking in the corner of the bar, and ignored him for the time being. He could actually buy some intelligence or something. So he replied, "Doing business." "Then go this way." Chen Ming bypassed the bartender and followed the direction he pointed to enter the room he had been to last time. The same man with glasses from last time was sitting in the room. He looked up at Chen Ming, as if reminiscing. Soon, he also remembered that Chen Ming was the person old Wu had brought here. "Long time no see, what intelligence do you want to buy?" "Well, I need information about Chen Ming." Chen Ming just casually said that he wanted to buy his intelligence. But Glasses didn't seem to have any doubts. Instead, he said as if he was trading intelligence normally, "This person is very popular recently. What's the price?" Seeing Glasses holding up 2 fingers, Chen Ming didn't say much and asked as if he was buying intelligence normally, 20,000? "Yes." "Okay." Chen Ming paid the money, and Glasses directly sent the intelligence to him face to face. Chen Ming stood up and leaned against the wall to take a look, and found that all the content in the intelligence was basically information that could be obtained from normal public channels. Basically, it was introducing Chen Ming's life. At most, it had some information on the pirate space station that was more than Chen Ming's own resume, but it was also very rough. Starting from the mining space station of the local corrupt Star Zone military targeting the Cinda Company, to relying on the psychic power that could control the spacecraft to come to the pirate space station. When he wanted to expose the corruption and greed of the Star Zone military and obtained enough evidence. In the end, because of the pursuit of the Star Zone military, he was forced to use psychic power to attract Yuhui and save his life. However, the evidence had been handed over by him, and the Star Zone military was destroyed. Then the 14th Legion rescued him twice in the heart of Yuhui and successfully brought him out, and let him use psychic power to severely damage Yuhui, taking away several Yuhui cruisers and several Alpha-class individuals. The content can be said to be quite vague, and there are some errors and omissions. There is not a single piece of information that can be considered confidential. The only thing that is still unknown to the general public is that the evidence of corruption within the Star Zone military was indeed obtained by Chen Ming. Chen Ming remembered that he had given the information to both the company and the boss before, but he didn't know which side leaked it. But overall, this information cannot be said to be useless, it can only be said to be worthless. So Chen Ming looked up at Glasses again and asked, "Are there more?" Glasses tapped the terminal next to him a few times and asked casually, "Do you need to be so detailed? Just tell me if you will sell it or not." "Sell, of course, but it won't be so cheap." "How much?" Just as Chen Ming was waiting for Glasses to count, the boss's voice suddenly rang out from the terminal in front of him. "Okay, Xiao Ming, stop playing. I have basically blocked your intelligence, and no one knows about it. There are only the ones you just saw in the bar, and nothing else. If you want to know what kind of news about you is circulating outside, just come and ask me, and I will take the initiative to release the news that can reflect your ability." "This is right now." Chen Ming said why the intelligence dealer who sells intelligence in the bar, funded by the boss, would sell his intelligence, and he didn't even know him. And the bartenders outside clearly knew him, knew that he usually wore protective clothing, and didn't associate him with Chen Ming and the intelligence. It seems that the boss had made arrangements in advance, and many news were blocked tightly, even his subordinates were not told. So his habit of wearing protective clothing was not leaked. Of course, the Space Station Management Bureau, where Chen Ming has been for a while, may not be able to control it. So there are still people who know Chen Ming's habits, such as the captain of the guard that Chen Ming just saw. But there is the factory director over there, and the company actively wants to renew the relationship with Chen Ming, so it is basically impossible to actively leak it. In addition, there are not many people who know Chen Ming's habits, and they should also take the initiative to protect him. There are a few people in the Management Bureau who know Chen Ming's habits and have the motivation to leak them, such as the director. Now it is difficult to protect himself, and I am afraid he has no mind to think about Chen Ming's daily habits. So Chen Ming's situation will basically not be noticed by others. Even if he is walking on the street openly now, he will not be recognized. But he thinks he should be more careful. Don't wear protective clothing in the future, just wear power armor. After thinking clearly about the current situation, Chen Ming said to the boss, "Okay, but actually I came to see Lao Wu, and I came to see if there is any information to sell." "Well, you can handle the rest. I have something else to do. Come to me if you need anything." The boss hung up the call. Glasses sitting next to him was a little embarrassed for a while. He remembered that the boss happened to come when Chen Ming came last time, and Chen Ming also chatted with the boss for a few more words and helped the boss with something. But he didn't expect that after not seeing each other for a while, Chen Ming and his boss seemed to have a good relationship. Did he provoke Chen Ming just now? Of course, Glasses thought so, but Chen Ming obviously didn't mean to pursue the fact that he secretly contacted the boss. After all, although Glasses did this just to obey the boss's orders, it was also to protect him. So Chen Ming sat opposite Glasses again, with no intention of mentioning what happened just now. Glasses breathed a sigh of relief, and a little nervousness and curiosity flashed in his eyes under the lenses. He suddenly asked, "Are you the Chen Ming?" Chen Ming did not deny, "Yes." "Then I will return the 20,000 yuan to you." Glasses dared not take the money now. "It's unnecessary, it's too troublesome. Just think of it as the wine money I paid for Lao Wu. And if he asks, just say it directly, it's okay." "Okay." After a few words, Glasses relaxed a little, looking at Chen Ming, waiting for Chen Ming's next move. Is it to buy and sell intelligence or something else? Chen Ming is thinking about what intelligence is worth buying. However, seeing Glasses' look, he suddenly thought of a question. So he asked, "You just said you would sell me more detailed information, right? What if someone else comes?" Glasses immediately replied, "I will also say yes." That's what the boss asked. He said that as long as someone buys your information, you will only be given the information that was given to you at the beginning. If you want more information, just notify him directly. Then if you pay, I will say that the information is very important, and I have to let you contact the boss and let him give it to you personally. I really don't have this much information anymore. Chen Ming thought about what Glasses said for a while and said, "I see." Anyone who wants to get access to Chen Ming's information will be personally asked by the boss, and then decide whether to actively leak some of the information. At this point, Chen Ming no longer entangled in his information, knowing that his information was well protected. He said to Glasses, Then help me check if there are any pirates with bounties over 50 million recently. Are you sure? Sure. The fundamental reason why Chen Ming suddenly wanted this kind of information was that he had always wanted to build his own fleet, and he was also implementing it. At this time, Chen Ming used his psychic power to look at the dock of the space station. His ships were basically parked here. That's why he was targeted by the new director before, and it was also one of the reasons why Chen Ming promised the factory director to kill the director before. The reason why the director was sweating profusely after knowing that Chen Ming was back, in addition to the good relationship between Chen Ming and the factory director. Another reason was that the director had previously targeted Chen Ming's things and really wanted to reach out. Even if he was stopped by the factory director, he had no idea of giving up. That's why he was afraid, and he went to the guard department and the network security department as soon as Chen Ming visited him. Of course, this matter has nothing to do with Chen Ming's current search for pirates. The reason why Chen Ming wants to find pirates now is just to make some pocket money. By the way, test his fleet. Chen Ming used his psychic power to personally control every ship he had parked in the dock, a total of 11 ships. Refraction, Gladiator, and Storm, and 2 military Centurion-class heavy frigates, which Chen Ming had earned some money to ask Lao Wu to buy. And, as compensation for the severance of diplomatic relations, the company gave 1 armor-piercing ship and 5 hammerheads some time ago. 7 destroyers and 2 escorts. This configuration is a bit strange. Generally speaking, for a normal fleet, as long as it is not a main fleet, the number of ships is preferably 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. For example, 10 destroyers are matched with 20 or 30 escorts. So Chen Ming has to continue to find ways to make up for this number. However, he needs to use the 7 billion on hand to buy industrial equipment first, and cannot use it casually. So Chen Ming plans to do his old business for the money for the new ship for the time being, and find a way to make up for it. If there is any money left after the equipment is bought, he will use it to buy ships. If he could test the strength of the fleet while making money, it would obviously be more suitable for Chen Ming's current situation than pure money-making. Of course, this is what Chen Ming has always thought. Although he already has a large number of Yuhui and Yuhui spaceships, it seems unnecessary to form a fleet. But he doesn't want to give up on this matter halfway. In Chen Ming's mind, the colonies belong to the colonies, and his own belongs to him. Although they are all his, he feels that it is better to distinguish them clearly. In fact, he had thought about calling a few ships from the Yuhui fleet in his hands, and returning them when he had enough ships. But another reason why he didn't do so was that the main function of the ships in these fleets before was to transport goods. So most of the ships in the fleet were cargo ships for transportation, and only a small part were combat ships. The combat fleet that Chen Ming originally planned was found by Yuhui's main battleship when he evacuated at the end, and the whole army was wiped out. The colonies in the border galaxies were basically in chaos before, so he had no choice. The lack of combat power was not something he could make up now. It is best not to move the remaining station fleets and try to ensure their combat effectiveness. What if the battle capacity of the warships that Chen Ming took away caused any problems? Chen Ming would really regret it for the rest of his life. These Yuhui are his real assets now. Moreover, Chen Ming's own fleet only had to face pirates, so he really didn't need a few Yuhui ships. If the pirate fleet was weaker, and he could operate manually and use psychic power, he could drive a storm to destroy the entire pirate fleet. Of course, if Chen Ming did this, there would be no value in the test. That's why he needed information about pirates with a bounty of more than 50 million, and planned to only be responsible for command in the future and would not personally do it. Unless he couldn't beat them. But after eliminating the previous problems, there was still a problem waiting for Chen Ming. Many of these pirates were funded by someone behind the scenes, and few of them developed from the grassroots and were still pirates. That's why Glasses asked Chen Ming to confirm whether he wanted to find the news about these pirates, just to confirm whether Chen Ming knew about this matter. Chen Ming certainly knew, but he didn't care about other forces. Anyway, it's basically out of reach in the future, so there's no need to consider it at all. And it's because of these people's funding that these pirates are valuable enough. If he can successfully capture these pirates alive, he can earn a bounty and exchange some money with the people behind them. As long as the people behind them can be informed in advance that these pirates have been captured, those people will definitely be willing to pay. Get out of jail quickly, change the identity of the pirates and go out, and they will be a bandit who can support the bandits and respect themselves. So Chen Ming finally decided to use this method. And he has been robbing pirates all the time, but he stopped for a while because Yu Hui's business was too important some time ago. Now it's time to restart. Glasses quickly found out all the information about the pirates who met Chen Ming's requirements who had appeared in and around the Star Zone recently. There are not many, a total of 3. Their bounties add up to less than 200 million, which is really just pocket money to buy spaceships. If Chen Ming really wants to make money, he still has to rely on his psychic power or colonies. The former requires others to completely trust him, and the latter requires a long time of investment. After Chen Ming got the information, he left the glasses. As soon as he went out, he saw Lao Wu still drinking in the corner of the bar. There was no one in the bar for most of the day, but Lao Wu still found the girl he liked from somewhere, and he looked like he might run to a hotel at any time. Chen Ming didn't want to disturb him at first. But Lao Wu didn't look like he could solve the problem quickly, so Chen Ming went over and greeted him in advance. Lao Wu. Hey, Xiaomu, have you found Lao Lu? Lao Wu was very enthusiastic and pulled Chen Ming to sit on the sofa next to him, without any sign of the look when Chen Ming said he was looking for the factory director. Chen Ming almost didn't react when he heard Xiaomu, and then he remembered that this was the pseudonym he used before, Mu Shuikong. Lao Wu was still very vigilant when he was outside. After realizing what was going on, Chen Ming nodded and said, I found it. So you're here to drink? Do you want me to find you a good-looking one? No, I have something to talk to you about. I have to start over with the thing I've been doing for a while, so you may have to go out twice more. Chen Ming is not safe now, and running around may cause problems, so he still plans to let Lao Wu go out to help collect the bounty as before. Of course, Chen Ming will definitely not give Lao Wu less errands. You're going out in person just for this? Not only that, there's one more thing. Buy me some things. Chen Ming handed the list that Hui Huang had sorted out to Lao Wu in person. Seeing this, Lao Wu pushed away the girl leaning on him and changed his attitude to a normal attitude. Just as he said just now, if Chen Ming has something simple to talk to him about, he can just contact him directly through the terminal. Now he's here in person. I'm afraid it's something important. Old Wu looked at the things on the terminal, opened his mouth slightly, and said with some surprise, These things? What's wrong? Is it easy to get? If it's not easy, I can go to the boss. No, you go to Old Wu to buy things. Aren't you just idle? I know, that's why I came to you first. Tisk. Old Wu, who was trying to persuade Chen Ming, rolled his eyes at him instantly. But Chen Ming ignored him and just asked, Just say whether you can buy it? Old Wu shook his head slightly, nodded and said, Some things are strange, but if you can accept substitutions, it's still easy to get. They are all very basic things. The list that Chen Ming gave to Old Wu was made by Hui Huang, because Hui Huang knew what was needed for the initial construction of a colony. Only some infrastructure is Yu Hui's own internal model, which cannot be bought by humans, and it is not easy to replace it with human equipment. You need to directly purchase raw materials and equipment that can produce these equipment and let Hui Huang make them, or Chen Ming make them. Under normal circumstances, Lao Wu only needs to order according to the list given by Hui Huang. But it is obvious that Hui Huang missed one thing when writing this list. There are many things that only Yu Hui has, but not necessarily humans. Of course, this may also be because this list has been written before, and it was not shown to Lao Wu by Chen Ming until today. Hui Huang has been connected to the human network, and should also know which things are relatively rare on the human side. It's just that Chen Ming didn't specify when this list would be useful, so Hui Huang didn't ask Chen Ming to modify it. Then now is the time. Chen Ming asked, What items need to be replaced? Tell me. Old Wu clicked on the terminal a few times, sent a revised list back to Chen Ming and said, That's all. Chen Ming forwarded the list to Hui Huang, and after getting Hui Huang's answer that it could be replaced, he said, No problem. Old Wu clicked on the terminal again and said, Well, I should be able to help you get it done in 2 days, but there are too many items, it may take a few days to send them over, and it will definitely cost a lot of money. The amount you need? Chen Ming raised his hand to stop Old Wu from continuing. You know what I want to do, and money is not a problem. I have made a lot of money recently. If I can buy all of them and keep 10% for reserve, I can use the extra money to smooth relations and speed up efficiency. It's better to do this quickly. I have been here for too long. If I continue, I don't know what will go wrong. Old Wu put the terminal in his pocket and said, "Don't be so pessimistic." "I am not pessimistic, I am analyzing. The factory manager said 2 days ago that someone is going to cause trouble for you." Old Wu shrugged and reached out to hug the girl he had just thrown away. "Okay, that's enough. I will inform you when there is news." "Okay." Chen Ming did not continue to disturb Old Wu and continued to have fun. Old Wu's performance just now also showed that although he was lustful and liked wine, he was basically not vague when doing business. Chen Ming turned around and prepared to leave. The moment he turned around, he suddenly felt a tingling sense of danger on his forehead. Chen Ming reacted very quickly and immediately condensed a combat power armor on his body. The streamlined solid armor completely protected Chen Ming. This was something that Chen Ming had mentioned intentionally or unintentionally when chatting with Bai Quan before. Then Bai Quan heard what Chen Ming meant, and very considerately gave Chen Ming a blueprint of a combat power armor called Locust when he gave Chen Ming anti-electromagnetic pulse technology before. So Chen Ming can make it directly now. The next moment after Chen Ming made this power armor, a gunshot rang out in the bar, followed by screams that instantly made the bar and the surroundings of the bar chaotic. And Chen Ming's forehead, which was protected by the power armor, also rubbed sparks at the moment the gunshot rang out. Someone fired a shot and hit Chen Ming's head. But it was obviously useless. And Run, who fired the gun, had been locked by Chen Ming. But he didn't move, because Old Wu, who had no protective measures on his body, was still behind him. Chen Ming took a step back and reached out to grab the arm of Old Wu, who had already turned over and moved behind the sofa. Old Wu was holding his head and holding a gun at this time, shouting at Chen Ming, "I knew you were a bad mouth. Someone is really looking for trouble with you." While Old Wu was talking, another set of power armor was built on his body. Chen Ming said back, "Stop talking nonsense. You knew it before. Protect yourself." He left this sentence and then took a step. The man who fired the gun before jumped out of the window of the bar before everyone could react and disappeared in the chaotic crowd outside. However, Chen Ming had just hacked into the surrounding surveillance network and locked his position. He couldn't escape. The Locust power armor itself was designed with a jet backpack at the beginning, and it also maintained very strong mobility. It can be regarded as a special type of power armor given by Bai Quan after considering that Chen Ming basically couldn't really use the power armor to fight head-on, but was mainly used to save his life. Chen Ming jumped out of the window where the assassin had smashed the glass, activated his jetpack, and flew high into the sky in an instant. However, he immediately received the air control signal from the space station, but he obviously didn't care about it at this time. He quickly notified the boss and the factory manager, and then he found the assassin who had fired the gun before according to the surveillance camera. It can be seen that he was desperately running towards the dock just now, and it seemed that he wanted to leave directly. The dock of the space station is the place that is least likely to be blocked in the entire space station. If it is blocked for 1 minute, the space station will lose a lot of money. So it is a very reasonable idea for the assassin to do this. But Chen Ming will not give him a chance to escape. After getting close enough, Chen Ming controlled the jetpack to let him hover in the air. A lot of pure white metal liquid flowed through his hands. Condensed into a weapon that is most suitable for current use, the electromagnetic javelin of the mechanical family. It does not look thick in the hands of Chen Ming's power armor, but it looks quite suitable. Chen Ming raised the electromagnetic javelin. The power armor visual sensor and the sight of the electromagnetic javelin were connected together by him. Almost instantly locked the assassin who was desperately escaping.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.